Right. Can you guys see my screen? Okay, thank you. You guys hearing me okay? Sound is okay? Okay, awesome. All right, let's get started. So last week we talked about cybersecurity in terms of personal security. So this week we're going to talk about what businesses can do or do in terms of securing, the data and their systems and everything else. So let's see, these are the goals for today. So we'll be going through all of these. All right. So the first part is identifying cyber threats. So remember from your personal security module how we talked about malware. So today we are going to break that down exactly the same way, right? So think of malware as like a digital criminals with like different specialities, right? So you have got viruses that spread like wildfire through your files. Then there are like Trojan horses, which is they're sneaky. They pretend to be like legitimate softwares, while secretly they're opening backdoors in your system for hackers. Worms are self-replicating troublemakers that don't even need you to click anything once in your system. They just spread on their own. Then we have ransomware. That's a digital kidnapper basically that locks your files and the demand payment. And spyware is basically a digital stalker, which they quietly watch and record everything you do. Again, we will go much more deeper in terms of every different types of cyber threats. But again, these are not just like theoretical concepts. They're happening right now, every day. So why does this matter to you? Because understanding these threats is your first line of defense, right? So if you don't understand the threats, it's really hard to defend against. Okay. So what are businesses actually, what are they responsible for, right? So it is pretty straightforward, right? So if you're a business, you need to protect your data and your customers' privacy, right? And yes, this is both a legal requirement and an ethical one, right? So think of it as like you wouldn't leave your office doors unlocked at night, right? So you'll make sure it's locked, nobody can get in. So the same principle applies digitally, right? So you need to train your employees because even the best security systems fail if someone clicks on a phishing email, right? The basics include protecting your information with encryption. You control who has access to what, and also staying compliant with regulations, right? Like GDPR in Europe, right? So every company has to, if you're working with data, you have to follow some guidelines, right? And here's the big one. So having a plan for when things go wrong, right? So of course you have to have like contingency plans. So if something goes wrong, these are the steps that the companies will take because they will, right? The companies that survive cyber attacks are the ones that prepared that they prepare for them. So if you're not prepared, you wouldn't be able to survive a cyber attack, right? Okay. So now I just have a quick question for the chat. So what do you think the companies should retain? So what kind of information do you think that the companies should keep, right? So what do you guys think? So what kind of data should the company be saving in their databases? So what do you think they save? Like you're using social media, you're using LinkedIn, right? Uh, you're using fitness apps, you're using Amazon, right? So they save certain types of data that they save, right? So what do you think, what type of data are we talking about? Personal data, that's correct. So personal data such as your name, your address, your age, your sex, your height, and your weight. So they all are personal data, right? That's correct. Yeah, information. So it could be any type of information, right? Yeah, payment details. That is also part of personal data. That's correct. Sensitive data, right? So, like your employment data, if you have it LinkedIn, they know where you studied, your professional background, your work history, uh, right? Yeah, if you work for a company, they know your benefits, they know your emergency contacts, right? Medical info, yeah, definitely. So that is also another thing that we, provide, right? So other type of data are like engagement data, right? So brand websites, we have social media platforms, email campaigns, how many likes, share, comments. We have behavioral data, right? So which are like page views, how many views on a video, how many things got downloaded, e-commerce transactions, right? And then employment data, which is basically what we give to our employers, right? Okay, so let's see. All right, so now let's talk about the rules of the game, right? So data protection regulations. So these aren't just suggestions, right? So these are legal requirements that apply globally. So regardless of you're in Europe or you're in Americas, it doesn't matter. It applies globally. So look at these three principles. They're actually pretty logical, right? So when you think about them, right? So informed consent, which basically means you can't just sneak around collecting people's data, right? You got to be upfront about it. So what you're doing. So, all those disclosures and agreements, you got to make sure that you ask people before taking the data. All right. Then we have transparency. So it goes hand in hand with consent, right? So no fine print tricks. Data minimization is simple. So only collect what you actually need. Don't be like those apps that ask your location just to show you the weather, right? So just gather the information that you need. And yeah, just gather the information that you need. You don't need the information that is not like the part of the application. All right, so let's see. Then we have data protection officers. So they're basically they especially handle like sensitive information, right? So when things go wrong, data breach notifications are an optional. So you got to have strict timelines to report incidents. The cybersecurity practices requirement ties directly back to what you just discussed about a business's responsibility. Record keeping, that's your paper trail showing that you're actually following these rules, right? So these are just like regulations. Of course, they all make sense and the companies has to follow them, right? So whether you're dealing with GDPR in Europe, I think in Canada it's called PIPEDA, or in California it's called CCPA, right? So these principles are your foundation. So if a company ignores them, the fines can be massive, right? And yeah, and also like just following the regulations kind of protects the company from certain type of cyber attacks. All right. So let's talk about what are cyber threats. So we're gonna talk about a few type of them and how they work, right? So the first one we have is the man in the middle attack. So it is one of the most sneakiest attack that's out there, right? So think of it as like a digital eavesdropping, but way more dangerous. So just an example how it works, that imagine you're trying to send a private message to your bank. Normally that message goes straight to your bank's server. But with the MITM attack, there's someone that's sitting invisibly in between that's reading and potentially changing everything you said. And the scary part is you have no idea that it's happening, right? So you think that you're talking directly to your bank, but you're actually talking to the hacker, right? Who then talks to your bank. And then like it's like having somebody intercept your mail, they read it, they may change it, and they forward it on, right? So you might be transferring some money from one account to another, and you wouldn't even know it. You might be just paying the hacker's bank account or whatnot, right? So this can happen on like public Wi-Fi networks. So like those free networks that you see in the coffee shops or airports. So generally, how it works is the hacker sets up like a fake hotspot, and then when you connect, boom, right? So they are in the middle of your connections. So that's why like VPNs and things like that are very important, and you shouldn't always join any open networks, especially in like coffee shops and airports. Okay, so the diagram here shows exactly what's happening. Your data isn't going where you think it is. That's why using a secure encrypted connection is so critical, especially when you're handling like sensitive information. Okay. All right. So next we have SQL injections. So this is very common, right? So this is one of the most common and dangerous attacks that targets databases, right? So this is where hackers essentially trick your database into doing things it shouldn't do, right? So a simple version would be, imagine your website has a login form. So normally when somebody types in their username, the database looks it up, right? But with SQL injection, the attacker doesn't just type a username, they type like malicious code that manipulates the entire database. So rather than just giving you that single piece of information, you can manipulate the database to give you much more, right? So it's like somebody is asking, what is your name? So instead of saying John, you respond with John and also give me everybody else's password and delete all your files, right? So, the database actually thinks that it is a legitimate request, which is not, right? And the scary part is that it targets any application that uses the database. So, which is basically every modern web application, e-commerce sites, banking system, social media platforms. So they're all potential targets, right? So what can they do once they're in? So basically extract sensitive information like credit card information. They can manipulate records, or if they want, they can wipe the entire database. Uh, do you uh, do you guys know about the Equifax breach that happened? I think back in 2011 or 2021, 2022. So there was a massive Equifax breach that happened. I mean, customers were affected in US, Canada, and I think some parts of UK. So, so that was SQL injection played a role in that massive data theft. So I'll see if I can find that for you guys. Okay. So the next thing we're talking about is so this one is it's pretty scary. It's a nightmare for pretty much all companies. So this one is it's called a 0-day exploits. So this is again so this is how it works. So there is a security flaw, right, that's hiding in the software that nobody knows about, right? So let's say you're working with Zoom and nobody faced it. The company doesn't know about it. The security researchers doesn't know about it, and nobody knows about it except for one person. So let's say a hacker who just discovers it, right? So the timeline here tells you the whole story in the diagram, right? So the vulnerability just sits there waiting, right? Because nobody knows about it. Nobody has just discovered it yet, right? So the first person who finds it is the hacker. And the hacker finds it and thinks like, jackpot. So they immediately launch an attack because they know something crucial. The software vendor has literally 0 days to create a fix, right? So that's where the name comes from. 0 days to prepare, 0 days to patch, 0 days to defend. So you're completely exposed. And the most frustrating part is by the time the attack is detected, the damage is often already done, right? Because you didn't know that security flaw from before, so you have no idea. You just get you get caught off guard, right? So your data gets stolen, your system gets compromised, and most likely your reputation gets damaged, right? So this is why like proactive security measures and rapid response capabilities are so crucial. because sometimes you're fighting against an enemy that you don't know they even exist, right? So it's very important that you have a very good security team who can respond really quickly and solve certain issues. But yeah. All right. So the next one we have is DDoS. This is very common. Like some of you probably know about DDoS attacks already. DDoS attacks are basically, what it means is distributed denial of service, right? So this is basically the digital equivalent of a flash mob blocking the entire entrance of your store, right? Except instead of people, it's thousands of computers that are stopping other people from accessing your online page, right? So, so if you look at it visually, you will see that like a lot of devices basically floods towards your okay, sorry. Yeah, so if you look at the visuals, you will see that all those devices are flooding towards that single target. That's exactly what's happening. So the attacker doesn't just use one computer, they use botnets, right? So which are networks of hijacked devices that they can control remotely. So, think about all of us in the class, like 30 plus of us, all of our computers get hacked, and then we try to access a single page, right? So what makes it so effective is that it overwhelms your system with a flood of internet traffic until your servers can handle like the actual users anymore, right? So DDoS attacks are not about like stealing data. It's more about making your business completely inaccessible, right? So again, DDoS attacks, like basically they're not really hacking your systems. What they do is they just like shuts down your store. Basically, your systems get overwhelmed because a lot of computers are trying to access a single thing at the same time, right? So the business impact is brutal. You're looking at like financial losses from downtime, operational disruptions where you literally can't serve any customers, and of course, serious reputation damage, right? So that always comes with uh, with DDoS attacks. All right. Yeah. So what Mahdi is saying, that's correct. So I think it was a, a SQL injection in the Movit file transfer platform, which was exploited by the attackers. Yeah. So it compromised, I think, the vendors or something. I believe like over 2.8 million Amazon employee data were made public. But that was also part of a SQL injection vulnerability. So you can imagine like if a company like Amazon can get hacked, pretty much anybody can get hacked, right? Okay. So let's talk about the system vulnerabilities, right? So these are like the weak spots that hackers love to find. So think of them as unlocked doors or like broken windows in your house, right? So digital vulnerabilities are basically weaknesses or flaws in your software, hardware, and even how you configure your system, right? The scary part is this can be exploited by malicious actors, right, to get into places they shouldn't be. So once a vulnerability is exposed, it compromises the security and functionality of your entire computer, your entire system, network, and application. It's like one weak link breaking in the entire chain, right? So these vulnerabilities exist everywhere in our IT system, your operating system, your applications, your network configuration, even your cloud settings, right? So again, talking about the Equifax breach, that started with just one unpatched vulnerability, right? The real challenge is that some of the vulnerabilities come from program errors, so basically bugs in the code that create backdoors for viruses. Others are actually intended features that work exactly as designed. but hackers find a creative way to abuse them, right? So the bottom line is every piece of technology in your organization is a potential entry point if not properly secured or maintained. So this is why we have to make sure that every piece of technology in the organization is protected, right? And what makes these delivery methods so effective is that they all rely on human interaction, right? Phishing emails, web links, endpoints. So the best firewall in the world won't help if someone voluntarily opens the door, right? By clicking a malicious link or plugging in an infected USB drive, for example. So that's why employee training is so crucial, because your people are often the first and the last line of defense against these delivery methods. Okay. All right, so let's take a look at some real life examples. So LastPass, a password manager, right? Trusted by millions. They got hit twice in 2022, right? So the hackers first compromised a developer's laptop, stole the source code, right? And then they used that to launch a second attack on their backup system, right? So the funny thing is, a company that is designed to protect passwords couldn't protect itself, right? So, so they're technically a security company, but they're not secure. And then there is, I think it's called Synovis, right? A UK healthcare provider, right? They were hit by a ransomware in June 2024. The damages were 3.2 million pounds in losses, right? Thousands of canceled medical procedures, and patient data, of course, got stolen and sold on the dark web, right? So again, the bottom line is these aren't just like IT problems; they're basically business survival issues, right? So this kind of attacks can just cripple a business completely. Again, just the cost itself. So total damage in 2024 is estimated to be around $9.5 trillion. And that is a lot of money. And in average, ransomware payments were around $2.7 million, right? And that has increased from previous years, and it's probably increased this year as well, right? All right, so now let's talk about the foundation of like all cybersecurity, the CIA triad. Okay, so this is not the spy agency that we see in the movies. This CIA stands for confidentiality, integrity, and availability, right? So think of it as like a three-legged stool. So if you remove any one of the legs, the whole thing will fall apart, right? So confidentiality means keeping sensitive data away from unauthorized eyes, right? Like using passwords and encryption. Integrity ensures that your data is accurate and hasn't been tampered with, right? So you know that what you're looking at is the actual data and no one has manipulated the data basically. And availability means authorized users can access systems and data when they need the data, right? So yeah, so those are the three principles, right? So they work together and they pretty much create a comprehensive security framework, right? So when every security decisions you make should consider all three elements, okay? And of course, this is a very important topic for your CompTIA. So, and this is a very foundational concept in terms of cybersecurity. All right, so let's talk about what is ransomware, right? So think of it as digital kidnapping, right? So it's a malware that is basically holds your data as hostage, right? So rather than holding somebody hostage, it holds your data as hostage. So here how it works in like 5 simple steps. So the first step is the hacker gain access to your computer system, right? So usually through a phishing email or a compromised credentials like password, right? Then they copy your data and before encrypting it, right? So they copy that data, right? So even if you have backups, like they will copy that data, whatever you have, and they will copy it, right? And so even if you have backups, it doesn't matter. They're still sensitive information. They could be, credit card information, passwords, banking information, whatnot, right? So the next part is encryption. So they lock up all that file using a strong encryption that is virtually impossible to break, right? And then they will ask for the ransom, typically demanding payments, generally like in Bitcoins and other cryptocurrencies, right? So it just makes it harder to trace. So, and finally, let's say once you pay them, they might send you the encryption key, right? But only if you pay. Sometimes they don't pay. So there is no guarantee that they will actually unlock your files. So that's generally how ransomware works, right? Yeah, that's correct. So as Mahdi said, is it possible that you pay the ransom and they don't? Yeah, that's possible, right? So you're not talking to an organization that is like a legal business or anything, right? So it they're basically cyber criminals, right? So you can't really trust them, but you also don't have the option, right? So you are at their mercy, basically. They can play as, yeah. So you still pay them, and your data can still be leaked, uh, and yeah, your data can still be leaked in the dark web. That is that definitely happens. All right. So normally, if so, so if how do you handle the situation if they don't give you the encryption key? So normally, the issue is you always have backups, right? So the primary defense is having like secure, up to date backups, right? If backups are clean and isolated, organizations can technically wipe infected systems and restore operations without paying, right? So if you don't have proper backups, that could be an issue, right? If in the worst case scenarios, when backups are missing or compromised, companies may have to rebuild the system from scratch, right? And always another step is you always notify the stakeholders and authorities. So companies will often disclose the breach to regulators, customers, and possibly the public, especially if personal data was exposed. Law enforcement agencies, right, like the FBI, may also get involved, right? But yeah, there's no guarantees. Even if you pay, attackers may not provide a working key, or they may demand more money, right? So there is that, and of course, ransom payments. So like I think somebody said in the chat. So ransom payment basically encourages them, right? So to do it again, right? Which is kind of tricky, right? So if you pay them, they know they're getting paid, and they might do it again, right? Maybe not to you, but someone else, right? All right. So security tools, right? So let's take a look at some of the tools that the businesses can use to protect themselves. So let's talk about the first line of defense, business antivirus systems, right? So this isn't your home computer basic antivirus anymore, right? We're talking about enterprise grade endpoint protection. So let's look at the key features. First, it's applied to most endpoints, right? Again, we can't protect all endpoints. It's not possible. So again, the term is most endpoints. So that's every laptop, desktop, server, mobile devices in your organization, right? So these systems are specially designed to protect business from full spectrum of threats. We're discussing malware, ransomware, zero-day exploits, you name it, right? And the game changer here is that everything is centralized has a centralized management system, right? So you don't install antiviruses on each computer. It is all controlled through the centralized management system, right? So instead of you hoping that each employee will remember to update the antivirus, everything is managed from one central console. Your IT team can push updates, monitor threats, respond to incidents across the entire network. Okay, so yeah, so that's how antiviruses for businesses work. Right. So, and why are they so powerful? Right. Uh, so so the first thing is that they have a collective uh, threat intelligence, right? So this means that your antivirus isn't working alone. It is sharing threat data with a global network. So when one organization gets hit with a new attack, everyone else gets protected instantly, right? Multi-vector protection is key because hackers don't just use one methods anymore. They will try emails, web, USB drives, whatever works, right? So your protection needs to be covered through like all kind of vectors simultaneously. Okay. Remote policy definition and management means your IT team can set up security rules from one central location and they push those rules to every devices in your organization. Okay, so no more walking around to each computer to update things. Your IT team will handle that for you. Data loss prevention, it stops sensitive information from leaving your network, while device control policies let you decide what USB drives or external devices can connect to your system, right? And the beauty of it all is reporting and alerting gives you real-time visibility into what's happening across your entire network. So we will look at some examples of the dashboards, how it looks like. But yeah, so real-time data is also very important. So yeah, so let me see. So Mahdi is asking what kind of antiviruses they use. Well, it depends. So some of the examples are we can see here, right? So yeah, so there's Microsoft Defender for endpoints. So there's one of them, which is deeply integrated into Windows, right? And it's now a lot more like we already have Defenders, but for endpoints, it's for enterprise use. We have CloudStrike Falcon, right? Which is a cloud-based Defender, right? That is very common among like big companies. Then you have some other ones, Sentinel-1. So I think they use AI and automation to stop like actual threats in real time, right? So these are some of the tools they use. I mean, we all know Microsoft and CloudStrike is very popular as well. There was a CloudStrike outage last year, I believe, and a lot of businesses got affected. So yeah. So let's see. Yeah. So that's what I said. These are some of the ones that we have. So yeah. So you basically get application and device management to control what software runs on your network. Network security basically monitors your traffic patterns, while mobile device management extends that protection to like smartphones and tablets, right? And then we have the sandbox analyzer. So this is more like how cybersecurity specialists they use VMs, right? So it runs like suspicious files in a safe, isolated environment, right? So before they can actually do any harm to your systems. Threat intelligence solutions keep you ahead of emerging attacks, right? And nowadays we use a lot of machine learning and behavioral algorithms, right? So that can detect threats that has never been seen before. And we have data from the past and we analyze them and we work with them. All right. So let's take a look at how how a dashboard looks like. So this is Trellix dashboard. So this will normally you will see it, is how it looks like, right? So this is how your security command center, right, where everything is important is happening. So we can look at the agent. Yeah, so we can look at the agent communications here, right? So we can see that there is 19 non-compliant devices that need attention, right? So the red slice in the pie is basically showing us that, these are some security gaps, right? And then we have the endpoint security section. This is particularly important. It is tracking how long the threats have existed on your network before being detected, right? In this case, you can see some threats went undetected for over 7 days, which is concerning because there's plenty of time for damage to occur, right? Then we have the repository usage, right, at the bottom. It shows that we have 199 security events, with 96% of it is coming from a single source, right? This kind of gives you a visibility, helps you understand where are your threats coming from. Okay, so this is, again, the dashboard. This is the DLP Incident Manager, which basically means Data Loss Protection Incident Manager, right? Again, your command center for data loss prevention incidents. Think of it as your security dashboard that shows you exactly what's happening with your sensitive data. All right, so we have a few tabs. So we're looking at the analytics tabs here. It gives you a big picture of, with those pie charts showing you the top rule violations, incident types, which users are having the most issues, the weekly trend. As you can see at the bottom, we can see that the 3rd of September would definitely be needs to be investigated, right? Then what else can we see? And here we can see different types of incidents that are broken down by types. We have web protection, email protection, printer protection. So you know exactly where your data risks are coming from. Notice how the web protection dominates with 1987 incidents. That tells you where you should focus your security efforts, right? So what really powerful is that there's so many matrices that you can monitor all your systems, right? You can also see what specific users are generating, right? The most violations, helping you identify whether it's a trending issue or something else, right? So yeah, that's normally how Trilix dashboard looks like. So see. The other question. So at the moment or in the future, they use or will they use AI to stop the attacks instead of antiviruses? Yes, it is actually happening right now, right? So AI is everywhere, and modern cybersecurity in big companies is increasingly powered by AI and machine learning, not just the traditional antiviruses, right? So AI is already built in, like in terms of modern security platforms like CloudStrike, SentinelOne, Microsoft Defender, right? So these platforms already use AI to detect suspicious behaviors in real time, analyze massive volumes of data, or to spot patterns that humans would miss, right? Predict future threats based on current threats, right? So yeah, and I personally think it will just get better in the future, right? So you will have like AI bots, which will search the network 24/7 for like early signs of compromises. AI will probably take immediate actions, right? Like disabling a user or rolling back a system change without waiting for human intervention, right? So yeah, it is powerful. It is not perfect, right? So of course, AI will need some type of human insight, but it is already being used, and it will just get better, right? All right. So let's see how these companies actually do work. in terms of like the cybersecurity companies, how do they work. So the first, we have the intrusion detection system, or IDS, right? So think of this as like your cybersecurity watchtowers, right? That monitor everything happening in your network in real time, right? So they are basically monitoring what you do, right? They don't take any actions, but they just keep an eye out on what you're doing, right? So there's two types. There's regular IDS, which watches your entire network traffic, like having a security cameras monitoring all the hallways, right? But there's another one which is called a host-based IDS, or HIDS. It's more personal. It's like having a bodyguard assigned to each individual computer or server, right? So that's basically the difference. You can see the diagram, how IDS and HIDS works. HIDS is protecting the system, and IDS is protecting the network, right? So again, you can see how IDS sits at the network level, watching traffic flow, while HIDS is installed directly on an individual endpoint. HIDS focuses specifically on what's happening on that single machine. It monitors the file changes, login attempts, running processes, basically anything suspicious happening locally, okay? So again, IDS just observes, it's a detection system. And then we have the prevention system, right? So now we're stepping up from detection to prevention. So this is where IPS comes in, right? So host IPS is intrusion prevention system, right? So think of IDS as the security camera that watches and alerts, while IPS is basically a security guard that will take actions, right? So the key difference is that IPS doesn't just identify threats, it actually responds to them in real time. So when it spots something that's malicious, it will automatically block the attack, quarantine the threat, or even disconnect the compromised system from the network, right? So you can look at the diagram on the right. You can see how the IPS sits directly on the path of the network traffic, acting as an active barrier. The red line shows that it's blocking the threats before it reaches your protected system, okay? Again, it's the same idea. So we have IPS and Edge IPS. So host-based IPS takes protection to like an individual system level. It's very similar to the one we saw before. It protects an individual system, and IPS tries to protect the entire network. Okay. All right. Now let's talk about security posture management. So think of it as your organization's cybersecurity health check, right? So just like you get your physical exams to assess your overall health, right? So SPM evaluates, maintains, and enhances your entire cybersecurity readiness, right? So the key here is that this is a holistic view. So SPM doesn't just look at one piece of your security puzzle. So it examines everything, your system, your networks, your policies, and controls you give, and controls you to get like a complete picture of how your system stands against cyber threats, right? So what makes it so valuable that it has the ability to help you identify and address vulnerabilities and threats effectively before they become major problems. It's more about like being proactive than reactive, right? So instead of scrambling after an attack, you're basically continuously monitoring and improving your defenses. Okay, so that's what basically SPM is. Next, we have network firewalls. So I guess we all know what firewalls are so far, right? So we have a good understanding about firewalls already. So network firewalls, so again, think of them as your first line of defense in any secure network. It's like a gatekeeper that decides what gets in and what stays out, right? Their main job is to protect your system from various threats, such as the ones we talked about, malware, DDoS attacks, and cyber threats that can try to infiltrate or disrupt your network, right? So firewalls are also critical for controlling network traffic and making sure it aligns with the security policies, right? That includes enforcing access control, even like filtering based on specific ports, protocols, etc. Right? So in short, without proper configured firewall, your entire network is exposed, right? So let's take a look at some different types of firewalls. The first one is network firewall. We already talked about it in the previous slide. It's the first line of defense. It sits between your internal network and your outside network. It inspects, filters, traffics, etc. Next, we have host-based firewall, right? So while network firewall is the same idea that we talked about with IPS and host-based IPS, right? So while the network firewall protects the perimeter, right? Host-based firewalls are installed directly on individual devices, right? So for like laptops, desktops, or servers, they monitor and control traffic in, traffic out of a specific device, adding basically an extra layer of protection, especially using when a device is outside of like a corporate network and using public Wi-Fi, right? So if you have a work laptop and you're working from your office, you're kind of protected within the network firewall, right? Let's say once you leave the work and you're going to see a client in a coffee shop, that time you're out of the network, right? So in those cases, your host-based firewall will kick in, right? Because you're connecting to a public Wi-Fi, you're no longer in the safe bubble, you're outside, right? So host-based firewalls are essentially for customizing security settings per device. So blocking unauthorized access, stopping malware from spreading internally if the system is compromised. Okay, so again, first line of defense is your network firewall. Host-based firewall is kind of like a second line of defense. Then we have distributed firewalls, right? This is like a more modern approach to network security, right? So unlike traditional firewall that sits in the network parameter, distributed firewalls apply security policies directly across all endpoints, including servers, VMs, and devices. So doesn't matter where they're located. This means security is enforced at a workload level, okay, not just a border. So it's essentially useful in like cloud environments and large scale networks, right? So where traditional perimeter defense isn't enough. So distributed firewalls basically help stop threats from spreading laterally within the network, and then they offer like a centralized control with decentralized enforcement, right? They are very powerful solutions, especially in today's dynamic and highly distributed IT environment. So yeah, it is much more modern than our traditional firewalls. Lastly, we have hardware and software firewalls. Hardware firewalls are physical devices that you place at the network parameter. They're like this dedicated box that is used to filter traffic and are ideal for like large scale environment that need high performance and reliability, right? So you can think of them as like a standalone security appliance. On the other hand, you have software firewalls that get installed on individual devices or servers. They offer more flexibility and customization and are great for like protecting specific hosts or smaller setups. Most companies have a mix of both. So they have a hardware and a software firewall. So that kind of creates like a layered defense system. Okay. All right. Next, firewall rules, right? So to control traffic, firewalls uses rules, right? And each rule typically includes a few important components, right? So first is the source. This is the IP address or range where the traffic is coming from. The destination is basically the IP address of the range that the traffic is going to. Ports is you specify the network ports that are being used. For example, port 80 for HTTP or for port 443 is for HTTPS, right? Actions, so this is basically determine what happens to the traffic. Usually it's either allow or deny. So if you remember our router example that we showed in class that had similar firewall settings, it had, you would put the source and destinations and port and stuff like that. Yeah. And again, there's two type of, normally there's like two actions. One is allow and one is deny. So the first one is allow. So this type of rule basically permits traffic from a trusted source to a specific destination or port. The deny is basically you block that traffic, often from untrusted or unknown sources, to reduce risk, basically. Okay. All right. So we do have a similar lab that we will work on, right? So this is our lab 6. So let me just share my screen. Okay. Can you guys see my training site? Okay. So again, you will find this under assignments in network firewall, and it will take us to our favorite Codio. So while it's loading, so again, it's a very similar idea of what we talked about, setting up firewall rules. We are checking if an existing rule already exists or not, and then we can create some new rules. We can also check how we can review the logs, etc. And then we can also analyze some of the stuff. So let's see while it loads up. Again, we talked about Windows Defender, right? This is a different Windows Defender. I mean, this is for personal computers, but the similar Windows Defender is used for like enterprise level applications as well. So let it load. Okay. So basically what we're doing is we are gonna review some of the firewall management tools that we have in a Windows environment. So we can search Windows administrative tools. Okay, so from here we can find our Defender with advanced security. Okay, so again, these are the rules that we were talking about in the slides. So you have inbound rules and outbound rules, right? So what each does and what not. You kind of get an overview of your firewall settings, right? So we can review some of our inbound rules here, right? And one of the exercises that we have is basically we can add a new rule, right? So we can review the existing ones. If you are interested, you can always look them up on the internet. Like, what does this mean? Like, for example, you can look up like, open port 558. What does that mean in Windows, etc. If you're curious enough, you can. And then on step 4, we will be creating our own rule, right? So again, it gives you all the step-by-step steps of how you should do it. I won't be going through them because they're very straightforward. You just go to actions, then you add a new rule, and you just follow along in terms of what they say. And then once you add the rule, you're basically adding a rule to block connection from port 22. And then step 5, we find this file and we check the logs. And then at the end, we come back and just remove. the rule that we added. It's very simple. Again, spend some time playing around with it. If you want to understand a bit more, you can always look things up. What does this mean, or what does that mean, right? So I would highly recommend you go through them. And yeah, so that's pretty much for the lab. So what I will do now is we will take a small break, 10 minutes, and we'll come back and we'll just continue the rest of the slides. I'll stop sharing.
Thank you, Ragib. Okay, everyone. I'll start the 10-minute break right now. So yeah, enjoy the music and see you all in 10 minutes.
All right, continue. Okay, so let's talk about file integrity monitoring, or FIM, right? So again, so FIM is it's a crucial security technology that continuously monitors and detects any unauthorized changes or modifications to files and directories within your computer system or across your network, right? So by tracking alterations to critical files and configurations, FIM helps identify potential security incidents early, such as data breaches or system compromises. So this capability is vital because even small changes to important files can be signs of like malicious activity, right? So ultimately, FIM supports organizations in maintaining the integrity and trustworthiness of the data and system, ensuring that their information remains secure and unaltered by unauthorized actors. So basically what we looked at, the CIA triad, so the integrity part of our CIA triangle is basically can be like FIM plays a big part in that, right? So it makes sure that your data that you have, it's maintaining the integrity and trustworthiness, okay? All right, so let's take a look at some practices, right, that that companies do, right, in order to keep their systems secured, right? So one of them, so they pretty much go in hand. So the first one is penetration testing, and the second is vulnerability scanning, right? So think of this as your cybersecurity stress test. So these tests are voluntarily, so the companies, they do them themselves, try to see how their systems are, how they're protected, or like what can be done, what can be changed, etc. So penetration system is basically like hiring an ethical, so you have ethical hackers to attack your systems, right? So you can hire hackers that they're ethical hackers. Basically, they are hackers, but they are the good guys. So they will hack your system to show you the vulnerabilities, and then you can patch them, right? So penetration testing is more like you hire those ethical hackers to attack your systems. So they think like criminals. They try to break into your network to show you exactly where your weaknesses are, right? So it's always better to find out from the good guys than discover it during a real attack, right? Yeah, that's what a lot of companies do, like Apple. So they give you some kind of a reward. So they have competitions, right? And then they attract all the ethical hackers to come try to hack their system. If you manage to hack them, of course, they find that vulnerability and you get a prize as well, right? So there's a lot of competitions for ethical hackings that happens throughout major tech companies, right? The second thing that we have is vulnerability scanning, right? So it's more like a regular health checkup. So it automatically scans your system, looking for known security flaws and any kind of misconfigurations, right? So while pen test shows you what your attackers could actually do, vulnerability scanning identifies the doors that they might try to walk through, right? So That's right. So again, let's break down the key differences between the two essential security practices. You can see at the visuals here that tell you the whole story. On the left, the penetration testing shows that the hooded figure is represented by like an ethical hacker launching targeted attacks from the internet through your firewall into your LAN. So again, this is active manual testing where security experts think like real attackers and try to exploit vulnerabilities in creative ways. On the right-hand side, we're seeing that the vulnerability scanning is represented by the magnifying glass. It's systematically examining your networks. It's automated scanning that identifies specific issues like unpatched system, outdated BIOS detections, and known vulnerabilities. Okay, so these are some of the practices that companies do just to keep up to date in terms of how their system is working in terms of getting hacked or whatnot. Okay. All right. So let's take a look at some concepts about threat management, right? So how do we manage threats? What type of things we can use to manage threats? So the first thing, let's talk about the local element manager or the LEMS. So you can think of them as like a specialized supervisors for your network equipment, right? So just like you have different managers overseeing different departments in your business, LEMS manage specific pieces of your network infrastructure, right? So these systems are responsible for day-to-day management and monitoring of individual network elements. So you're talking about your router, your switches, your access points, your firewalls, or any other critical equipment, right? So they're like having a dedicated IT person assigned to each piece of hardware, making sure everything runs smoothly. Okay. And next, we have log management. This is very, very important. Logs are like very critical in terms of debugging or any kind of things, right? So think of log management as your digital paper trail. It's like having a detailed record of everything that happens in your IT environment, right? So every device, every application, system in your network is constantly creating logs, system logs, security logs, application logs, you name it. So without proper log management, it is like trying to solve a crime without any evidence or witness, right? So if you don't have logs, it's like it never happened, right? So here's what makes why it matters so much for cybersecurity, because when something goes wrong, whether it's a security breach, system failure, compliance audit, your logs are the only way to figure out what actually happened, right? So they're your digital forensics toolkit, basically. So log management centralizes all the information so you can actually make sense, right? So instead of having logs scattered across hundreds and different of systems, everything gets collected, stored, analyzed in one place, right? So this is crucial for like security monitoring, compliance reporting, troubleshooting problems, and tracking systems performance. Without a good log management, you're basically flying blind when it comes to understanding what's happening in your IT environment. Okay, it doesn't only apply in cybersecurity; it applies pretty much everywhere, right? So with debugging, troubleshooting, compliance reporting. So log management is important in terms of all aspects of IT. Okay, so take a look at some of the log managers that are being used every day. So we have got several solid options depending on your need and budget, right? Splunk. So this is like a very popular one, right? It's a heavyweight champion. So it is like a commercial platforms that excels at security information and event management. So think of it as like the premium option that can handle massive amounts of data and can give you sophisticated analytics. Again, these are some platforms that businesses can use for log management. Okay, so just to keep that in mind. So Splunk is probably the most popular one. Of course, it's a commercial platform, so you have to pay for it. So we all know what open source is, right? We talked about Linux and stuff. So on the open source side, we have got two great options. So Greylogs, they provide an excellent tool for like collection analysis and visualization. of your log data. There's another option that is ELK stack. So ELK means Elasticsearch, Logstash, and Kibana, right? So they work together and give you a fast, reliable searching capabilities, right? Again, these are open source. They need to be deployed on its own. You will have somebody to manage them, right? You don't pay anything for it, but you have to manage it, right? That's the idea about open source. So you take care of everything. Then we have Sumo Logic. So this one is a bit different. This is a cloud-based platform. So it handles all the infrastructure for you, and it focuses heavily on security monitoring and threat detection. It's perfect if you want a powerful log system without managing servers. Okay, so the key is choosing the right tool for your organizational size, budget, and technical expertise, right? Whether you go commercial or open source, cloud or on premises, the important thing is that having a centralized system that can actually make sense for all your logs to be in one place, right? Okay, email filtering, very important, right? So absolute essential for modern cybersecurity. We talked about it in last class. So they are kind of, again, there's a lot of first line of defense. So this is another first line of defense against the flood of malicious emails hitting your organization every day, right? So think of email filters as your digital bouncer, right? So they automatically evaluate every incoming and outgoing email. It checks for spam, phishing attempts, malware, and other threats that can, that can be a threat to your employees' inbox, right? So this happens in real time. So bad emails get blocked while legitimate business communications, they flow through normally, right? But here's the critical point. The email filters are not foolproof, right? So we have to make sure that the users, which are us and our employees, we stay vigilant, right? Even the best filtering technology can't catch everything, especially day by day, the emails are getting more sophisticated, right? And some of them look very legit, right? So that's the, right? So yeah, so that's why educating your employees, educating yourselves about spams and phishing, etc., is so important. Okay. All right. And the other thing is that we can't just apply email filters and just go about our day, right? So it works best as a layered security approach. So along with the other security approaches we saw, firewalls, etc., we apply this on top, right? So just by itself, it wouldn't do a lot, but along with the other ones, it can be effective, right? So what are some different email filter types and different protections, right? So let's break down some. So we can see, so content filtering is basically your basic text analyzer, right? So it reads through your email content. It looks for spam keywords, suspicious phrases, and other red flags, right? So think of it as somebody else reading every email to decide if it looks legitimate or not, right? So that is content filtering. It's very similar to the exercise we did last class. Something reads through the email and tries to find some keywords that seem funny or weird, right? So that's basically content filtering, but it's done automatically through like a text analyzer. The second is Bayesian analysis. Is where things get a little bit more smarter. This system actually learns from experience, right? So every email it processes teaches it to be better at spotting spam. So it's like having a filter that gets smarter over time by studying patterns in good and bad emails. So this is where machine learning comes into play. So every bad email gets, the model learns that bad email. So in the future, it can use that analysis on top of what it learned. So it just keeps on learning. So this is a more modern approach to like filtering spams. Antivirus filtering. It's basically your malware hunter. It scans emails, attachment, and embedded content using both like signature-based detection for known threats and behavioral analysis for new and unknown threats. This is crucial since email attachments are still a primary way of malware spreads. So, and finally, reputation-based filtering works like a digital blacklist. They maintain a database of known spammers, malicious IP addresses, and suspicious IPs, right? So if an email comes from a source with a bad reputation, it basically gets blocked automatically. Also, sometimes companies with not a very big digital presence might get their emails blocked as well. It might end up in your spam email. Sometimes you order something from like a small business, you will see that that email might end up in a spam inbox because that company doesn't have that big of a digital presence, right? So that can also come into play. For example, if you buy something from Amazon, most of the time, 99% of the time, it will end up in your inbox and not in spam, right? So there is that as well. So reputation-based filtering. So it works both ways. Okay, so let's look at some cybersecurity frameworks again. So these are just conceptual. I mean, this can go very in depth, but we just want to know the concepts of what they are, what are they called, right? So one is called NIST, and the other one I think is pronounced MITRE attack, right? So the NIST cybersecurity framework is basically your high level, it's a strategic roadmap, right? So think of it as an executive's guide to cybersecurity. It gives you that big picture view of your cyber posture using 5 core functions: identity, protect, detect, respond, and recovery. So this framework is generally perfect for like executives to understand because it focuses on the outcome rather than getting lost in the technical details. Okay, so it's like an overview of your cyber posture. It's usually used for like people in the top who doesn't really know a lot in terms of technical details, but they want to get an overview of how their company is doing in terms of cybersecurity. The MITRE attack, it's a very different approach. It's all about understanding your enemy, right? So this framework provides a detailed taxonomy of the adversary tactics and techniques based on real world observations of how attackers actually operate, right? So it's like having a playbook of every move cyber criminals use, from initial access all the way through like data extraction, right? So the key difference is the NIST will help you build a comprehensive cybersecurity program, while MITRE attack helps you understand a specific attack behavior and threat intelligence. Okay, so NIST is good for like establishing a foundation, while MITRE attack is perfect for threat hunting or validating your defense against real world attack patterns. Okay, so these are the two frameworks. So let's take a look at physical security, right? So because cybersecurity doesn't mean anything if someone can just walk into your building and steal your servers, right? So we have to make sure that wherever our servers are or our computers are, they're properly secured as well, right? So physical security is about protecting your people, your property, and assets from real world threats, right? So the 4 key components here work together as a layer of protection, right? So access control systems are your gatekeepers, right? So they decide when somebody gets in and tracks everybody's movement, right? So access control systems are basically when you go to work, you tap in your badge, the doors opens up, you go in, right? And then you tap in, you go out. So basically keeping a log of everybody going in, going out in an office, right? Some offices have them, some don't. It depends on the type of business, right? But that's something that is called access control systems. Okay, that's number one. The second thing We have the surveillance cameras, right, which provides you eyes and ears. They monitor everything 24/7, right? And they create an evidence if something goes wrong, right? Then you might have security guards. Some companies do, some don't. Some are there in the control room watching. So it depends, right? So security guards adds the human element, so they can make judgment calls and respond immediately to situations that technology might miss, right? And then on top, you have physical barriers, right? So you can have fences, gates, walls that creates your perimeter defense, right? So you wouldn't be setting up your whole IT department in the middle of the field, right? So you will have physical barriers that kind of protects you. It doesn't really, it might not stop it, but it will basically slow people down, right? So they're designed to deter, detect, delay, and help you respond to threats, right? So so the key is that physical and cybersecurity, they work hand in hand, right? So what's like, like what good is the best firewall if someone can just walk in and plug in an USB drive in your server, right? So you have to make sure that along with cybersecurity, we are also secured physically as well, right? All right. All right. Our next topic is Security Operations Center, right? Or SOC, basically. So SOCs are basically your nerve center of your cybersecurity operation, right? So think of it as your organization's cybersecurity command center, right? Where a dedicated team works around the clock, right? To keep your digital assets safe, right? So the SOC is essentially your centralized cybersecurity hub who are responsible for 4 critical activities. So the first activity is monitoring, right? So they're constantly watching your network infrastructure 24/7, right? Looking for anything suspicious. Then there's detecting. So they use advanced tools and techniques, try to spot threats that might, slip past your automated defense, right? So of course, you have AI and other built-in automated systems, but of course, things can fail, right? So that's why you always need some kind of human intervention, right? Next comes analyzing. So then when something suspicious is detected, the SOC team will generally dig deeper to understand what's happening and how serious the threat is, right? And finally, they're responding to the threats and try to mitigate that incident, right? So again, they work in 4 steps, and we can talk about it more in the slides, so how it works. So the diagram here shows exactly how SOCs operate, right? So again, we talked about the log management system, and that's why it's so important, because that's where we get all of our data, right? So yeah, it's all about log management processes that creates this continuous cycle of security monitoring. So we start at the top, right? So we start at the very top. So we collect and log the data from every device, application, system in our network. So we're thinking about servers, firewalls, endpoints. So everything generates logs that tells us a story of what's happening, right? Then you centralize and index all those logs in one location, right? So this is crucial because having logs scattered everywhere is like trying to solve a puzzle with hidden pieces all over your house, right? So the indexing makes everything searchable, so you can actually find what you need quickly. Okay, so this is where the software comes in, the Splunk, etc., where you get everything saved in like a log management tool, right? And then we search and analyze log data, right? So this is where the SOC analyst earns their money, right? So they use the advanced tools to spot things that don't look right. So finally, you monitor everything, you set up automated alerts for suspicious activities, right? And then when something triggers an alert, the cycle continues as a new data gets generated from the response action. Okay. So the beauty of this process is that it's continuous. So your SOC, they never sleep, right? So it's constantly collecting, analyzing, and responding to keep your organization secure, right? And notice how it all falls back to secure storage. Essentially, you maintain that audit trail for compliance and forensic analysis. Okay, so this is basically the cycle. That's how it works. Okay, next we have OWASP. Okay, so we have to talk about OWASP. This is basically the Open Web Application Security Project, right? So this is one of the most important resources in cybersecurity. In terms of cybersecurity world, every cybersecurity specialist knows about OWASP. And the best part is it's completely free and it's community driven. So OWASP is a nonprofit organization that has been leading the charge in web application security for over 2 decades. What makes them special is that they're community led. So meaning security professionals from around the world will volunteer their time and expertise to create these resources. Something that's really famous is the top 10 list, right? So it's basically a regular updated ranking of the most critical web application security risks. So can share that with you guys. So the last list that was updated was back in I think it was 2011, and I believe that they are working on releasing one this year. Yeah, so we are planning to announce the release of OWASP 2025. So they're collecting data from whenever up until December 2024, and they will update the list with the new top 10 list. Okay, so again, the list basically includes the most critical web application security risks, and basically telling you that, you know, these are the risks that are top 10 that we think is the trend, and you should be prioritizing them, basically, right? So that's basically what the list is. So this list is from 2021. So the new list will be updated, I think, in 2025, but they're still pretty relevant. And you can see in the slide that this was the one before, which was 2017. And a lot of things have changed from in those 4 years, and some things have moved down, some things are new, some things have moved up. Okay, so that's what basically OWASP is. All right, do we have any questions? Okay, no questions, we move forward. Okay. Next, so now we're talking about it's one of the most disturbing trends in cyber crime. So ransomware as a service, or RAAS. So this is essentially the financing of cybercrime, right? Franchising, sorry, it's the franchising of cybercrime, where cybercrime groups would license out their malware to other criminals who want to get into ransomware business but lacks the technical skills. Think of it as like a criminal McDonald's, right? So the main group provides the product and infrastructure, while infiltrates and the actual attacks and they share the profit, right? So this is a business model that has made ransomware attacks more frequent and accessible ever than from before, right? It's a lot more that happens now than last year. So basically, one company or one organization will lend out the software to another company who are criminals but might not have the technical ability to do it. So like I give it to you, you can use that to hack, and whatever money you make, you give me a percentage, right? So it's basically franchising that piece of software. The consequences of ransomware attacks are absolutely devastating for organizations, right? You're looking at immediate revenue losses because your systems are down, you can't serve your customers, your reputation definitely takes a hit, right? Your customers lose trust, right, when they hear that you're breached. I have got emails from companies that that got hacked, uh, and my personal information got leaked. I'm pretty sure some of your passwords and stuff got leaked as well, right? And I wouldn't I wouldn't go back to that company ever again. Like I do, like it had happened to me so many times. I'm sure it happens to you guys as well. Your password got leaked, your email got leaked, and whatnot, right? So you lose that trust, right, from that company. Like you couldn't protect me. Like I don't want to do any more business with you technically, right? So the financial costs go beyond just ransom payments, right? So you've got data recovery expenses, system rebuilding costs, legal fees, fines from regulators, right? And then there's operational disruption. So your entire business gets stopped while you try to recover, right? And the scary part is that, like how we talked about, paying the ransom doesn't guarantee safety, right? We had a discussion, right? Even if you pay, it doesn't mean you're safe. So many organizations that pay end up getting attacked again because criminals know that you're willing to pay, right? It's basically putting like "rob me again" sign on your business, right? So if they know that they can make money off you once, they know that they get money off you again, right? It's basically that. So we can take a look at some real world examples, right? So again, these are not theoretical scenarios. These are actual attacks that happened and caused massive disruption, right? The Colonial Pipeline attack in May 2021 is a perfect example of ransomware that can affect everyday life. So when the hackers shut down the pipeline that supplies fuel to the eastern US, gas stations they ran dry. People were literally waiting in lines for hours to fill up gas, and the company had to pay like $4.4 million in ransom, even though the FBI tried to recover half of it. Right. Then we have JBS USA. It's a meat processing giant that got hit in June 2021. They paid around 11 million to Reveal, that's the name of the company, of the cyber criminals, uh, just to get their systems back online and resume packaging meat products. So, so while they were under attack, they couldn't use their systems, they couldn't use their factories to, because our systems are so much relied on the internet and what we have built, right? So, and the most recent one was in the city of Oakland. They declared a local state of emergency in February of 2023 because they had to shut down their entire IT infrastructure due to ransomware attack, right? So yeah, so these are some of the attacks, recent attacks in terms of ransomwares that we have seen, and they are increasing, most likely increasing by year to year, right? All right, so we're pretty much at the end of our class. So what we will do now is I will stop sharing and Ahmed will share his screen and we will follow his screen for Kahoot. Okay. And if you could kindly share the link and the password.
Okay, I will share my screen. Just a second. Okay.
Okay. If you could kindly share the link and the pin so people
Okay.
can join. Thank you.
The pin is loading, so
Okay, cool.
okay, there's the pin. All right, let me share my screen as well. There is sound. Wait a second.
No, I could hear the sound.
Okay, good.
All right. All right, guys. You guys can see the pin.
Okay.
Okay,
Oh,
see Marcos. I see Ellen's question. I'll get back to that once we're done with the class. I'll share some resources about the ransom attacks. That's not a problem. I mean, once we're done with the class, we'll share that. Share the video on the training site, Ellen, and you should be able to review them. Okay. Just give 2 more minutes. No problem, Josephine. If anybody else wants to join. Okay, let's just start at the 45 mark. Okay, we'll have like 10 questions today. They're all pretty straightforward. There's one that is a bit tricky. So, yeah, and we'll just go over the questions all together rather than breaking them down into sections. All right. We can start in 1 minute. I think we have, okay, we should start, we'll give it 1 more minute. We have 16 people. This is great. Okay, we can start now. Okay. Okay, so business security. So let's see what we have. Multi-select. What do companies keep? So we got this question earlier. Okay. Okay. All right. Yeah. So they keep all the information that we looked at, right? Personal details, employee data, business data, and engagement data, right? So go to the next question. All right. Max is number 1. Okay. Which one of the following attacks is most likely to happen in a public Wi-Fi? So we give an example about logging into the bank. If you guys remember. Yeah, man in the middle. That's correct. So that is definitely correct. It's not a DDoS, not a SQL injection, it's not a malware. Somebody will sit in between your internet connection and try to intercept. That's correct. The correct one. Okay, let's take a look at the score. Okay, Max is still number one. Marcos has moved up and Mati has moved up as well. All right. A zero-day attack occurs when a vulnerability is first discovered. Okay. The hint is given on the thing, right? So 0 day, so it hasn't been discovered yet. So it's the first time that that people discover the bug, basically, right? So it's true. That's correct. Next, let's take a look at the score. Okay, Marcos is number one now. I think Max got the last one wrong. He moved down a little bit. All right. What are the three fundamental principles of the CIA in cybersecurity? Okay, so this one, just make sure it's not the CIA in the United States. That's correct. So first option is correct. The cyber doesn't, the last ones don't really make sense. So the first option is the correct one. Yeah, so let's go next. We'll take a look at the score. All right, Marcos is leading. Madi is on fire. He's catching up to Marcos. Okay, let's go. All right, next, true or false? Over the next 2 years, cybersecurity attacks will reduce. So it's an easy one. We have seen the trend, right? That's correct. False. So it has increased year by year, and it's most likely to increase farther, right? Things, their tactics have gotten sophisticated, and right. So that's correct. So next, let's take a look at the score. Ooh, okay. So Madi's number one. That's okay. Paul B, Precious, Max, and Andres. Okay. All right. Let's go to the next one. Okay. Antivirus should be installed on all endpoints where possible. Before you answer, think about it. This question could be a bit tricky. So I guess you guys have already answered it, but false is the correct answer. That's correct. It's a very tricky question. Yes, ideally, we want to install it in all endpoints, but some endpoints may not be compatible with antivirus solutions. Like we have our Cisco switches, right? You can't install antivirus softwares on systems like your IoT devices, right? So it's a very tricky question, but the answer is false. It's not possible to install them in all endpoints. So we can go next and look at the score. Andres, okay, so I guess Madi took some time answering that question, but he got it right. But Andres has moved up. He was faster. Okay, it was a tough round. Okay. Very easy. SPM provides a holistic view of an organization's cybersecurity landscape. We talked about SPM. Okay, that's true. That's correct. Right. So SPM, posture management, so it gives you a holistic view of your cybersecurity posture. Right. So next, let's take a look at the score. Oh, okay. Madi back on the top. Good. We have Andres, Paul B, Fintan, and Max. Okay, all right. Peter has an answer streak of 4. That's cool. Okay, next. Let's see, question number 8. We have 3 more questions. Multi-select. So select all the forms of cybersecurity protections. Okay, it's a multi-select. Okay. It's definitely not airport scanners. I mean, that would be yeah, it's not airport scanners, right? That wouldn't make sense. So yeah, firewall, FIMs, and penetration testing. These are the correct answers. Okay, let's keep on next. All right. Okay, so Andres is back on the top. I think Madi got that one wrong, but that's fine. So then we have Max, Fintan, Paul B, and Marcos. All right, let's go to the next slide. We have 2 more questions. Let's see. Multi-select again. Just read them carefully before you answer them. So cybersecurity frameworks, we talked about them. So think wisely. Like if something doesn't sound familiar, we haven't talked about it. Or if something sounds familiar, we have talked about it. That's correct. So NIST and MITR are the ones. DDoS is it's an attack, right? So it's not a framework. And I'm not sure what AFSP is. We haven't talked about that. All right, so let's see. Oh, Max is on the top. Andres has lost his first spot. Paul B, Marcos. I think it's gonna be tied between Max and Paul Bird. So this is the last question. So good luck to everybody. True or false? SOC, monitoring, detecting, analyzing, and responding to security threats. Okay, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 answers, 15. Okay. Okay, so the answer is true, right? So we looked at it already. It's the cycle we talked about, the monitor, detect, analyze, and respond, and it goes cycle. So let's see our winners for A. We have number 3, we have Marcos. Nice. Number 2, we have Paul B. That means number 1 is Max. Nice. Amazing. All right. And we also have Madi and Andres and the top 5 and everybody else who played. Well done, Max. Paul Bird, we'll get them next time, right? All right, so that's about it from me. I will pass it over to Ahmed